talk to you and share some ideas for about 40 minutes, give or take, some discussion. It's mostly presentation, which is not my style. We like to be interactive in Crestcom, but because of the setting, I'll do more sharing of information. But a couple points along the way, I'd like to get some ideas from you. I won't put anybody on the spot. Since we have a live audience here, I'm sure you have something to share because we all go through change, and maybe you can share your ideas and your experiences and participate. Okay? First, before we get started talking about change, a little bit about Crestcom and me, and just so you know where I'm coming from as a person and an organization. I represent Crestcom International here in Switzerland. Crestcom, we are a leadership development company. We like to say we transform managers into leaders. We help leaders raise their game and develop their skills through a combination of training and coaching. We work with leaders in about 60 countries around the world. We've been around for about 30 years. We work with all kinds of companies, all kinds of leaders. We work with very small companies with 5 employees where we're working with maybe an individual or 1 or 2 people at a time, all the way up to about 65% of Fortune 500 companies have used Crestcom for their leadership development program. So it's one of the most widely used leadership training programs in the world. We've gotten a bunch of awards. And we're very happy to bring that brand to Switzerland here. In 2020, we're launching the brand here for Switzerland. So very happy about that. We work with some really talented individuals who are thought leaders and experts in leadership, and we help share their ideas with people like you here today. What does that really mean? What do we do? Leadership development, what is it that we do? We do monthly leadership development training where we get together in an environment like this and we train around what we say are the 12 fundamental skills of leadership. We take content from a lot of very talented people and exclusively for Crestcom and share that with you as part of that process. It's very interactive, again, a little bit different than today where this is more of a presentation. We like to interact and use your experience and have exercises where we can digest certain leadership concepts. We're all about taking action. It won't be the last time you hear me talk about taking action today in this session, but we really, the way our programs are structured, you learn, but you take action, you implement things that you learn. Our goal is to make positive change in the organizations that we work with. Taking action is just the critical part of doing that, so we help you take action. And we come around and we do some coaching with you every month when you're in our programs to help you along the way, to help you internalize and progress with learning, help you take action, see where things are working and not. And in our own change, we do this now although it's live, there's always someone like me or a Crestcom person, facilitator in our training. It's live, but it's all online now. So this is a change initiative that Crestcom went through over the last 3 or 4 months where we were doing a little bit of our training online. Now we do here in Switzerland all of our training online. We think it's given us a lot of benefits and flexibility, and we can work with more people and impact more leaders. So we've seen it as a very positive change. Very briefly, me personally, again, my name is Patrick. I'm an American, if you can't tell from my accent. I haven't lived in the US for about 25 years, but I've been here in Switzerland for almost 14 years, and I very much consider it my home. Throughout my career, I've been exposed to a lot of different forms and types and environments of leadership, good and bad, my own leadership, good and bad, sometimes good, a lot of times bad maybe. I started my career in the US Army. I worked in government. I worked in a really big company, like a big Fortune 100 company. I was a CEO of a company based here for about 10 years. I've been around a lot of startups as a founder and an investor. So I've seen leadership in different environments. And in fact, growing up in my household, I was raised by a primary school teacher and an Army general. And so I was exposed really early in life to 2 very positive, strong forms of leadership that helped shape my interest in leadership. And I think I have sort of 3 missions. My mission, speaking like an Army guy, my mission here in Crestcom, Switzerland is first, I want to help people develop their skills as leaders, to be better leaders. Simple as that. Second, I'd like organizations to see the transformative, tremendous impact that I think good leaders can have on any organization in a real tangible way. I want organizations to see that. And third, I'd like to kind of demystify the idea of leadership, right? It's not leadership with a capital L. I get asked a lot if I think leadership can really be trained and learned. People say, well, aren't leaders born, or they have innate traits and personalities that make them better leaders? Can you really train people to be leaders? I just want to be clear from the start, unequivocally, you can learn to be a leader. It's a skill. It's not that complicated. It's a skill like anything else where you have to practice, you have to learn, you have to work at it, evaluate your performance, try to get better. And if you're not a leader and you want to be one, you can totally learn it as a skill. And if you're a leader in any organization at any level from the top to the bottom, I know you can be a better leader. So that's my mission, to try to help you be a better leader. So that's enough about me. We're going to talk now about change. When we start out in a session like this, in any of our training sessions, we always have learning goals. We've taken some content that's usually a 2-hour, usually our modules are 2 hours at a time. We try to truncate it and shorten it down and deal with attention spans like of being in a public setting like this. We try to truncate it, but we still have learning goals, right? Today we're going to talk about the 4 primary reasons why people resist change and how, of course, how to overcome that. We're going to talk about how we involve people in the change process and the planning and the implementation of change. And we're also going to talk about building trust, right? So important concept. We'll spend a little bit of time on that so that you can become a change architect who's trusted by others, okay? Those are our learning goals today. So we'll start with a story. So there's a man, he's trapped, lost in the desert for days. Doesn't know where he is. He's wandering around, stumbling over the dunes. He thinks he's going to pass out from the heat and exhaustion, and he really needs something to drink. And he comes over the dunes and he sees a man on a camel riding by, and he says, "Oh, sir, I desperately need a drink." And the man on the camel says, "Well, I don't have any water, but I do have a nice selection of ties. Would you like to buy a tie?" And you can imagine the man who needs the drink. He just needs a drink to survive. The sort of look in his face, the look of dismay, befuddlement, outrage at this statement. And I would suggest you've probably seen that face before. It's usually the face you get when you tell someone you're going to change something. When we look at the way we manage change, if we look at any studies about change management, 2 things become really clear. First of all, we really stink at implementing change. We're really unsuccessful as people and in organizations around the world. We're generally unsuccessful about implementing change. In fact, this quote says 70%. I could show you a lot of different studies, but this quote from United Airlines says 70% of major corporate changes fail to deliver the benefits that they're set out to do. So that's kind of depressing, right? We can't implement change. We're not very good at it. But the flip side of it is the other learning that's quite clear is the reason that we fail at change management is because we don't spend enough time considering the people, the hearts and the minds of people in the organization, right? So that kind of duality gives us an opportunity. We know that we're bad at it, but we know the reason why, because we don't focus enough on the people. This study here in The Economist magazine, close to home, this was 294 executives right here in Europe, so I'm not using an overhyped American example, but 294 said only 1 in 5 change management, 20%, only 1 in 5 projects succeed. A big chunk of those, generally the experience we have with change is this 63%. They make some kind of temporary improvement or marginal improvement in something, but it doesn't sustain itself, right? It doesn't last, right? The change manager gets fired and somebody else comes in and change goes on top of change and people just don't follow through and it doesn't deliver any benefits that it's supposed to do. 63% of the time, and the rest of the time it just completely fails, right? But again, we go back to, even though we change a lot we fail a lot, at change, the reason is that we're not focused enough on people. When we think about change, we go into this sort of zone as leaders. Sometimes we sort of back away into a smart strategy zone where we hide from people and we try to come up with brilliant ideas, and we just think if we come up with a compelling enough smart idea, because we're so smart, right, that we'll just tell it to people and then they'll agree. "Oh man, you're so smart, that's great, let's just do that, let's all do that." That's the way we kind of think sometimes, and it doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't work that way. 80% of the time it doesn't work. So I think this quote from John Carter is pretty accurate, that only effective change is only about 20% of the actual structural change. Usually the thing we spend the most time thinking about and worrying about, it's not the structural change, it's 80% really is just good people management. It's managing the people involved, okay? So what does that mean? Let's talk a little bit about what good people management and change looks like. One of the problems that we have with change is that we fundamentally think that, or we believe that people fundamentally resist all change. People don't want to have change. People are set in their ways, they're conservative, they're used to things. We don't want to rock the boat, and everybody's going to resist change. They're going to be like this office staff in this cartoon where they're dead set against any kind of change management consultant coming into their organization and changing anything, right? But, you know, is that really true? Do you think people always resist change? Let's do a quick exercise. I'm going to pick on someone. What's your name here?
Claudia.
Claudia?
Claudia.
Claudia. All right, so Claudia, we do a simple exercise. Imagine we're in the same organization, and I come to you and say, Claudia, I'm going to make a big change to the organization. What is your first question?
What kind of change?
That's right. So right off the start, it's not that she didn't say, no change, right? We don't resist all change. We have an idea that some change could be important, and she says, I want to know what it is first. Very smart. If I say, Claudia, oh, that's a good question. I actually want to double your pay. I want to give you twice as much money as you make now. Is that cool? Would you be open to that?
Of course.
Yeah? If I told you that, what would be your next question?
How much?
That's a good question. That's a better question. Okay, what would be your next question?
My next question would be, what's the reason why my salary gets double paid?
Ah, good one. See, what's the catch? What do I got to do to get this double in my pay? All right? So it's not that we really resist all change, it's that we want to know those two fundamental things. What is it? What is the benefit? Okay, double pay. I like that. I like to talk about that. But then on the other side, what's the sacrifice? What's the cost that I have to give up in order to get that? All right? When you think about people resisting change, you want to get at there's only 4 fundamental reasons why anybody resists change. They might say a lot of stuff, and we'll talk about that in a second. Cosmetically, people give a lot of reasons for not wanting to change, but you need to boil it down to 4 underlying reasons. All right? The first one is people just don't think it's a good idea. They don't perceive that there's any value in that change. They don't agree with what you say is going to be better. 2, they don't perceive the sacrifice to be worth the benefits. Now, if I told Claudia that I'm going to double her pay, but she has to work 5 times as many hours, if that's even mathematically possible, she would say, well, I don't know about that. If I said, hey, well, I'm going to increase your pay 5%, but you have to work weekends. And she might say, well, I don't know about that. I like my weekends. I mean, 5. I can see 5% as a value, but it's not worth the sacrifice of, working weekends, right? So I don't like that. I'm going to resist that. Now we get a little bit deeper into some of the reasons. This is a good one. People didn't help create the change. You didn't ask me, right? How often have we heard that, right? People like to be involved. They like to have their opinion respected and heard. And if they feel like they didn't help create something, they're automatically on the outside of it and they'll resist it. Anyone who is married has experienced this reason for resisting change many times in their life. And 4, this is the most poisonous and the one that we need to work the hardest on. People resist change because they just don't trust the people making the change, the architects of the change. And maybe they don't trust them outright, or maybe they don't trust that they're going to follow through, or that it's really going to work, or if there's a lack of trust at any level, it's a major resistance to any kind of change, all right? So I want you to understand these sort of 4 reasons, all right? And I ask you to participate. If these are the 4 reasons that people resist change, and you're assessing people's resistance, you need to get down to the underlying reasons of what it is, all right? So can anybody think, if you're thinking about sometime you went through change and people resisted it, can you think of a reason someone gave for why they didn't want to do something? Anybody think of a reason? Reason, a little tough question. Yes, sir?
Change doesn't work for me.
Change doesn't work for me. Okay. And what category do you think that would be in if someone said change doesn't work for me?
Predominantly 3, I'd say.
Predominantly 3. You didn't ask me. All right? You didn't ask me for my opinion. Or it doesn't work for me because I don't perceive it to be beneficial, all right? But it's in one of those categories. And sometimes, in the example here, this is my favorite one. People say, it wasn't communicated properly, or you didn't go through the proper channels, all right? I like that one. It smells like bureaucracy, all right? And in my notes, actually, I think people think that they don't understand the change, so they say it's not beneficial. But when I actually hear people say you didn't go through the right channels or wasn't communicated properly, I think about what this gentleman just said is, you didn't ask me. I didn't help create the change. And I think if you think about change and resistance, you're making an assessment. You don't have to be an expert in categorizing reasons for change. You can use these to have a conversation. I can say, well, Claudia, you say you don't like it, all right? But is it because you don't perceive it to be beneficial at all? You don't agree with it? And then she'll say, well, no, but I don't want to work all those extra hours. Okay, so you like the raise part. You like the benefit we're trying to achieve. We're on the same track there. Let's focus on the sacrifice you have to make to get there. Maybe we can minimize that. Maybe we can make that easier. Maybe we can share that burden. Now you're in a discussion where you're opening up and talking about true underlying reasons for resistance. So if you understand these are the 4 reasons for resisting change, you need to do something about it. So let's talk through some things you can do to overcome resistance. So I don't have time to go through all of these 4, but I want to go in reverse order because they're in reverse order of importance, okay? We're going to deal with number 4, trust, and number 3, not helping to create the change, all right? And we'll talk about some ways to overcome and deal with those 2 reasons. And my experience is if you take care of those 2 reasons well and comprehensively enough, the other 2 kind of work themselves out. Because when people work together in a trust environment to change something, they would agree that it's beneficial and come up with a way to make the sacrifice worth it. So we're going to talk about the last 2. We'll start with this issue of trust. Now I put this quote up there. I always want to stop for a second because it takes me back a little bit. But this is true across a lot of studies. And this one study said of some workforce that was surveyed in the world, it says less than half of the people in the workforce trust the people at the top of their organizations. And almost a third, 28% of people actively distrust their leaders. That means when that boss shows up for work, he or she has a trust deficit. Something comes out of that person's mouth that's automatically not believed. People actively don't trust that person, right? It shocks me a little bit when I read this, but what shocks me more is most people are not too surprised at this. Is anybody super surprised at this quote? No? All right. Unfortunately, this is our experience actually in a lot of organizations that we don't trust the people in charge, right? And it should be shocking. So we're going to talk about how can you be, so one way to overcome that and to build trust is to be trustworthy, okay? All these things to be trustworthy are pretty simple, right? But putting it together and putting together a definition of trustworthiness is a step in the right direction and will support you in conveying and earning people's trust, okay? So very briefly, what are the 7 things you need to be to truly be trustworthy, not just to be perceived as trustworthy? First, you need to be honest. Okay, say the truth. Say things that are true. That's the thing that we mostly identify with honesty is telling the truth. Okay, that's the simple definition. 2, be transparent. Share information, right? If there's information available to help you make a decision or evaluate something, we usually underestimate the amount of information we could share in organizations. We think a lot of stuff is secret, or people can't handle it, whatever. Actually, as leaders, we should do more to share information and to be open to the extent that we can, but give people the same benefit of the information that you have to join a conversation about change. 3, be dependable. If you say you're going to do something, do something. If you're going to address someone's concern, address it. If you're going to do something on time or start a meeting at 6 o'clock, I wasn't very dependable today. We were a little late on the session. Be dependable. It's about being consistent. People like consistency. We all do. 4, be confidential. If someone tells you something in confidence, keep it in confidence, right? Sounds so simple, but how many times have you heard people say, well, I shouldn't be telling you this, but, right? We hear that all the time. If you shouldn't be telling me, don't tell me, right? And if someone tells you something that adds to your understanding of a situation and they do it in confidence, they're relying on you to hold that in confidence. 5, be loyal. Be loyal to the organization that you work in, to its standards, to its values. Be loyal to your own values. 6, be accountable, right? I think accountability is so important, such an important leadership concept. I'm going to do another slide and talk a little bit more about accountability. Accountability is about making things happen for yourself. You're the person that's responsible for your results. Your organization is responsible for your results. But you need to be accountable. We'll do an extra slide on that just to talk a little bit more about accountability. And then last, be humble, right? Don't take yourself so seriously. You make a mistake, say, I made a mistake. You mess something up and say, I'm sorry, right? I would like to think in today's age that we're beyond the time where humility is seen as some kind of weakness, right? We know humility is strength. Humility binds us with others, and be humble. Again, don't take yourself so seriously. So that's pretty easy. These are the 7 things you need to be trustworthy. And let's talk about accountability for a second. Because that word, it's one of those words like integration or something that gets thrown around a lot. We say accountable. Yeah, I would like to be accountable. But what does it really mean, right? What do we need to do to be accountable? Now, in our training program, we teach a whole session on 2-hour module on creating a culture of accountability. Being accountable as individuals, being accountable as an organization, where that's a behavior and a value of the entire organization. And we use this to explain this. One of the things we do is we talk about this accountability ladder. We talk about the different levels of accountability in an organization, and we want to help ourselves and our teams move up the ladder of accountability. All right, so I'll explain the ladder. Basically, the bottom 4 rungs of the ladder are all about victim behaviors. Things are happening to me out of my control. I blame other people, I make excuses, I say I can't do something, or I just put my head down and wait and I hope it goes away, right? Those are all things that are victim behaviors. Things are happening to you and it's out of your control. What we want to get to is a higher level. We want to get to accountability behaviors. And the accountability behaviors are on the 5th rung. We say, all right, let's acknowledge reality. What's actually happening? What's the situation? What's going on? What are the facts, all right? And then we go up a level to 6 and we say, hey, let's embrace this. What is positive about this situation? What could we see as an opportunity here? Is there something that we could take to our advantage to create an opportunity here? All right, so embrace the situation you're in. And then find solutions. What could we do to solve this? What are some ideas? What's 2 or 3 things we could do? And let's talk about it. Let's talk about 20 things we could do. And then finally, the most important rung of let's do something. Let's make it happen. Let's take action right away. What are we going to do to address this? You want your team, I think you'd agree, you want your team and yourself operating at the highest level where we're making things happen, all right? But it's hard sometimes, and I think you should think about this ladder and this tool not only for a self-assessment, but it's a coaching tool. You know, you can have coaching conversations and group discussions where you kind of help people move up the ladder. You can say, all right, guys, I know this is a tough situation, but it's not going away. Right? If we wait around, we can't hope for it to go away. Let's describe what's going on. All right? Let's really describe and share what's happening. Let's embrace it. Do we see, same question. You can use those as questioning techniques to move your organization and your teams up to a higher level of accountability. Right? And if you do that, a lot of those other things kind of fall into place because you've got to be transparent. People got to trust you to lead a conversation like that. And that's why I think it's such a fundamental concept. So that's accountability. So if we come back now, all those things, as I mentioned, were easy. Everybody knows that. We learned those things in elementary school, right? Again, this is not leadership with a capital L. You got to be honest, transparent, dependable, confidential, loyal, accountable, and humble. The magic here is, or the trick, the hard part is, I would challenge you, write these down. I'll send you this slide after. I'll send you an email after this. Write these down in your notebook and make yourself a self-assessment. How are you in these on a consistent basis? And periodically assess your beliefs and your behaviors around how trustworthy you are and try to get better. Maybe rate yourself or maybe put a plus by the areas where you think these are really strengths of mine and my personality as a leader. And these are some things with a triangle or a negative sign or something. These are things I need to work on and try to work on, try to express those behaviors openly to get better. And you might say, oh yeah, come on now, it's pretty simple, right? I'm trustworthy, I don't need to make this self-assessment. And that's fine, but I would just tell you that in your organization, if you don't self-assess, everybody you work with, whether they work for you, or they work with you, or alongside you, everybody that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, they're making this assessment of you on a consistent way, but they're just not telling you. So take time, assess your trustworthiness, try to get better. It's the starting point of leading change in any organization. Don't let somebody else do it. So we talked about a lack of trust and how negative that could be, right? But the flip side of this is that trust is actually a driver of high performance, right? Lack of trust is bad, but organizations that have a lot of trust and express and show a lot of trust actually operate at much higher levels than organizations that don't have. And this study, or this quote from Training Magazine, says even companies with high trust levels generate way more shareholder returns than companies with low levels of trust, right? Trust in whatever you do, whether you're the CEO or you're a parent or you're a team member or whatever you are, it's such an important concept because it multiplies influence and impact. And I want you to read this last sentence in this quote, right? It says, a lack of trust is your biggest expense. So I would suggest today, I hope you take a lot of things out of this training session and things that you can apply. If you can take one thing out of this session today, I'd like it to be that a lack of trust is by far your biggest expense in your organization. And if you have a lack of trust, you have to immediately deal with that before you can ever do anything positive or change. Okay, so we talked about trust a little bit and how to generate and earn more trust in our organizations. So let's talk about this one about people resist change because they didn't help create the change, okay? So what can we do about that? When you're setting out, I hope that you're not dealing with resistance to change at a time where because you've sprung it on people and said, oh, this is what suddenly we have to change. But when you set out to think about something that needs to change in your organization, you have two tasks ahead of you as a leader, two missions, right? To use the mission again, right? First of all, you have to understand people's concerns and find common ground. You need to put your thinking about change in the context and the language of what people's real concerns and opinions and things that keep them up at night and their ideas are, so that they can join in the conversation, join in the language of what you're trying to talk about in terms of change. You need to make an effort to understand people, so put it in their terms. And two, even more important, you need to make it safe to disagree. Such an important concept. Google did a study some years ago in their organization. They studied globally teams in Google all around the world, what made them effective, high-performing teams. And they did very much engineering Google study, and studied a lot of things and observed teams and measured their performance. And this is a multi-year study. And the number one thing that contributed to high performance and effective teams was a concept they called psychological safety. And it's this very concept here. It's the ability to disagree in an organization, to disagree with authority, to have an opinion that's not accepted or adopted by the group, but just to have an opinion, to have a creative idea that ends up not being. No fear of retribution or stupid politics or bias or anything like that. So those are your two fundamental tasks just to get to the starting line of change. If you don't get people's perspectives, understand where people are coming from, and make it safe to disagree, you have no chance of earning people's heads, hearts, hopes, and engaging them in any positive way. So it just gets you to the starting line. The other concept I'd like you to think about and change when you're planning, you're setting out to manage change, is this idea is that you really are selling. You think of yourself as a salesperson, right? Some people don't like that metaphor, but you really are selling something when you're selling change. You're trying to get people to buy into what you're selling, which is your idea of a new way of doing business. You're trying to speak to their needs and what they want and put the change and sell them on it and make them willing to pay the price sacrifice that to get the change and the goal that you want them to have. And this is from this quote, Kathleen Frank, who literally wrote a book, or the book, I guess, on selling change. And I'll stick with this sales metaphor for a second. You know, if we were selling someone was selling, a video equipment or a computer or something like this, we wouldn't think of selling something to someone without ever trying to get a sense for, is this something that they actually want, or something that they value, or what would they pay, or do they even know how to use this video equipment, which I wouldn't, right? We would never do that. We would try to get a sense for what people want, and then, okay, then if you like computers, check out this one, right? And we would sell that to them. But that's actually the way we handle change a lot. We withhold information. We go into our smart strategy corner and come up with our brilliant ideas, and we withhold and spring change on people without ever asking them, hey, what do you think? What would be your ideas for that? So the sales methodology, the sales analogy is an important one here to think about. You really need to win people over, right? And give them what they want and what they need. So this idea of involving people in the plan, I like to get some ideas from the group on just two basic questions. Just no whiteboard or anything. In general, in an organization you're in, or you lead, or you are a member of, how do you get solicit feedback and suggestions from employees? Just in general, how are things going? What can we do better? All right. What are some ways you do that? And at the same time, what are some of the ways that you actually involve people in the design and implementation of change? Anybody share something there? Take a little drink, sir. What's your name again? I keep calling you sir and gentlemen. I'm trying to be nice.
Philip.
Philip, all right, thank you.
Kickoff meetings where you invite all stakeholders.
Okay, kickoff meetings, good. Those are planning for change, okay. Some other ideas, anybody?
I was with an organization and we did regular monthly pulse surveys. Leadership pulse surveys.
Pulse, or define, what is a pulse?
So they would go online,
survey.
they would get a short little thing, how energized are you in the workplace, give us a few reasons
Okay,
why.
all right.
And real simple, short, and regular measurements just to see how the thermometer of the energy changes.
Okay, so pulse survey. Any other ideas? How do you experience it?
Well,
Patrick?
we're implementing a couple of processes from sociocracy. So
Okay.
the consent, trying not to make a change based on a democratic decision, but get everyone on the same page. And sociocracy and some things from holacracy, which we use to move our change management forward.
Okay, and tell me a couple points about that. Does that involve people being able to champion change without being in a position of authority, or how do ideas get generated for change in that type of environment?
Well, the things we don't have, as it is sociocracy, we don't have any hierarchy anymore.
Okay.
So my role is just another role, like all the other ones.
Okay.
Even if I'm a shareholder. And therefore, it really doesn't matter who brings in which ideas and who challenges which ideas. It has the same validity no matter who it is.
Okay, so that's very interesting. You have sort of a system, you have some standards, values built around how ideas can be brought up and addressed in an organization. That's great. Very, very interesting. Any others?
I've been part of some lunch with the department head or
Okay.
let's say the head of the entire business.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I noticed, many times the heads, they don't take the feedback so good. So many times the answer is very political in a way that the things are like how they are.
Okay.
In order to change the process, it takes lots of time. So
Okay.
it's better. We know there is a problem, but we don't change it.
Okay.
And I saw it in a couple of companies here in Switzerland.
Okay. But we've seen it's 50% of the time people don't trust that people are going to follow through, so it happens everywhere. All right.
So my feeling was that the voice of the, let's say, the bottom people is not quite important for the big leaders, let's say.
Okay. So we talked about having some values, kickoff meetings, this Pulse survey. I think that's quite common. Has anybody else been in an organization where you did a survey, employee survey, right? Did you find that was a good thing or bad, or did it, what happened after the survey? What happens after the Pulse survey, James?
Well, either the leadership responds in some ways, or there's a group, cross-functional group that reflects on it and tries to come up with some possible responses.
Okay. Maybe combined with some of the things that Aline was just talking about here, like step-up meetings and lunches and group discussions, say, hey, this is what people are saying at a higher level about the organization. Here's some ideas. What do you think? You know, trying to stimulate discussion. I know an example that I could share of the second one of involving employees in the design. Again, going back, something that stuck with me since my Army days was a concept called the after-action review. Sounds fancy, but it's really pretty simple. When you do something, anything, you do an acquisition, presentation, sales presentation, or whatever it is, big or small, you stop with the group that did it and you say, how did that go? What happened there? What was good? What was bad? 3 ups, 3 down. What do we want to keep doing and what do we want to stop doing or do better? Just a simple concept like that. Doesn't have to be a big presentation or a big road dog and pony show. It can be just a conversation of, hey, we just did that thing. How did it go? What can we do better? And so then people feel like there's a tempo, there's a rhythm of participating in ways and ideas of how we can get better, because it's kind of built into the way we work. We're always coming up with ideas to do better. So there's a group ownership because we're always stopping to get and solicit people's ideas, and then we have to do something about it because we know we're going to do it again and review it. So that's a concept, maybe the AAR or the hot wash that we could use in our organizations. So I think those are all really, really good ideas, really positive. I give you one more quote, getting toward the end of our presentation, but one more quote is that I want you to think about this idea again of selling change, and your job as a leader to sell change to others. That it's not just about selling change or convincing someone to accept like a transactional thing. First of all, selling change impacts your whole organization, your brand, your processes. If you change to a certain type of organization like a holacracy or something, that has an impact on how you're perceived by your suppliers, your supply chain, your shareholders, any kind of stakeholders. But I think whatever you set out to do, really embrace it, right? Because change can be a transformative learning process, and it's something that you can embrace, and it makes you stronger, it makes you be able to deal with adversity, it makes you wiser in the future. But I would take that a step further, because our job in this session is to talk about change from the context of being a leader. And if you take this same quote and commit to, I'm going to take the whole organization along with me, whether it's 2 people I work with or 200 people I work with, whatever, my job as a leader is to take the organization and help them together embrace change, learn from it together, transform, because this year, next year, won't be the last time we change. We need to build up the capacity to deal with adversity and also to create positive change, like innovation and new ways of doing things. So I would challenge you in your organizations to think of it at the organizational level and not just at the individual level of dealing with change. So we talked about our learning goals for this short session. Reviewing them again, we talked about the 4 underlying reasons why we think people resist change, and a few things that you could do about that to address it. We've just talked about how to involve people and enlist people in change, and how much more effective that is for bringing people along to accept and come up with positive change. And then 3, we also talked some about being trusted, how to earn trust of people so that you are a trusted change architect in your organization. So those were our learning goals. I hope we met most of them today. Normally in our training sessions, we would end them. We wouldn't stop after learning something. We would end them by setting out and deciding, what are we going to do about it? All right? I promised you I would talk again about taking action. And if you just sit in a learning module or training session and you learn some new idea, accountability ladder, Roger, and you don't do anything about it, it's worthless. Okay? So we always end our sessions, in our training sessions, we actually have an app, pretty cool. We go online, or people fill out a little card, and we say, okay, what did I learn today? What am I going to do about it? What benefits will it have, and how long am I going to give myself to implement this? Okay? we use this SMART. People have probably seen the SMART format before. We want to identify something specific, measurable, achievable, benefits, or why is it relevant, and in a specific time we're going to accomplish it, and we're going to take action. By the time we get back together for training, we're going to accomplish something and implement something in our organization. Something big, something little, but we're going to do something about it. So I would challenge you today. We're not in a training session where I'm going to be able to follow up with you. I hope to talk to you again, but I challenge you, when you go away today, I hope you learned something. I hope you got something out of it. Take something. The 4 ways of the way you, the 4 reasons people resist change. Try to have a conversation about that in your organization if you're going through change. Use the accountability ladder and help people raise to a higher level so they can take action with you. Make a self-assessment of how trustworthy you really think you are, and commit to doing better in the areas where you might be weak. And implement some of these cool things that we brought up, the pulse survey, the holacracy and openness to change, the meetings, the AER, the kickoff meetings. Implement some of those things in your organization. It's not hard. Just do it. Take action. If this concept or this idea of learning to be a better leader is interesting to you, if you're in an organization where you want to develop leaders and see the positive impact on your bottom line performance that this can have, our kind of flagship program here in Switzerland is a 12-month leadership program where we train on 12 fundamental leadership skills. These are kind of the features. We don't do a 30, 40-minute session. We do a 2-hour session twice a month to train. It goes with a lot more detail, a lot more interactive. I wish this could have been more interactive. But that's 48 hours of live facilitated virtual training during the year. We do 12 monthly coaching sessions with anybody who participates in training. Somebody annoying like me comes into the organization and talks to you and says, how's it going? Are you making progress? What obstacles are you facing? We have lots of all the course materials, and there's a learning portal where you can track your action plans. You're going to do you're going to do 24 action plans in the 12-month program, so you're going to make a big impact on your organization, big positive impact on your organization. You have access to all that through a learning portal, and all the tools and worksheets and all that is available to you. We run it on like a monthly subscription model. There's no magic start or stop time. You can come in, come out. We hope you stay in the whole 12-month program and then continue into our quarterly continuing education program so that you have continuous learning in your career, but it's just a monthly subscription. And again, we deliver it live and virtual, which here in Switzerland has a great benefit of being able to include people who are maybe remote or traveling or working in other areas. Not everybody can always be here together in Switzerland. Some of us are in Switzerland and not together because we're working at home. So again, all of our stuff is live and virtual. If you're totally convinced, you're like, man, I got to get into this training stuff right away, we do have here in Switzerland a schedule of public training that you can enter, or anybody in your organization can enter. And this is kind of the schedule. Again, we do 2 modules a month. We do them twice during the month. And this is the schedule for the rest of the year if you want to jump right in. We also have, this is the English language schedule. We also have the training available in German. So if you have people in yourself or people in your organization that prefer to do it in German, we also have a German schedule behind this I could provide you. So anybody wants to talk about that, you can contact me, and I'm glad to help. I think what's more likely is you don't want to jump right in, or you and your teams don't want to jump right in. Remember when I said earlier that people resist change if they didn't feel like they were part of making the change. Developing leaders in your organization is a form of change, and most people want to buy into that and say, yeah, I want to participate, I want to get better as a leader. That's a much better participant, much better student of our program than someone who's forced into it, right? So bearing that in mind, we want to help you enlist change in your organization by giving people, a test drive of our content and the way we approach leadership. So we offer this free, complimentary, no obligation, 2-hour leadership workshop. It's different than what we're doing today. This is sort of open. I'm talking way too much. But when we get together in the leadership workshop, it's just you, just your team, just your company, and we're going to talk in a lot more detail about a number of different concepts. And we're going to put everything in the context of your leaders, You're going to assess yourself as leaders, as a group. You're going to talk about your strategic challenges. We're going to do an exercise talking about what your customers perceive to be your challenges. We're going to talk about a few other topics, including communication, which you'll learn is another important concept in leadership, holding us back from more effective leadership. We're going to do all that in a 2-hour workshop that's usually 2,000 or 3,000 francs, but we make that available as a way for you and your team to work together, try out, and then if you like the training, you can sign up and go from there, all right? So after this, I'm surely going to send everybody this link, but if you sign up for this, go to this link here. There's a little bit more information. There's some good case studies and testimonials, but it's basically, a way to schedule a quick consultation call with me. I want to get the lay of the land, understand your organization, how many people you have, and we'll schedule this workshop, and we can do it virtually. We could do it in person, but we can do it virtually, so you can include people from other areas, and I encourage you to do that and take a test drive of our approach to leadership development for your company. If you use this link, only if you use this link, and then you sign up for training or put people in our standard training program after that, you'll get a 20% discount on the training program, all right? But only if you use that link. I'm not going to say I'm going to take it down in 2 days or anything crazy like that, but we want to offer a discount to people who come through workshops like this, experience our approach, see if it's a good fit for you. I don't know if it is or not, but you can try it out and then sign up, and we'll offer you a discount. That's all I have. You can check out our website, crestcomswitzerland.com. That's the local site for Crestcom. You send me an email, give me a call, do whatever you want to do, contact me, and that's my pitch for today. Anybody have any questions or comments? Don't have to. I just want to make sure we address everything anyway. Okay. That's my presentation today. Thanks a lot for your time and your attention very much.